All right, we should be live. Keeping you waiting, kept you waiting, as Snake says in Metal Gear Solid. As Stillhead was saying in the chat. Hello and welcome to Audionautic episode 118. This is the Independent Musician's Guide to Production and Promotion. And this week we're taking a look at some promising tape emulation with a bit of an expensive catch that I didn't see at first, but it still looks awesome. We'll also look at a crazy Ebo like, and we were discussing before we went live, that's why we were partly late, whether it's truly like an Ebo or not. But it's kind of like an Ebo string resonator from Landscape. And then finally, in the round robin, we're going to discuss Spotify playlists. And in this age of payout thresholds, excessive bot playlists, is it still worth pursuing Spotify playlists? And if not, what's the new or rising alternative? Or what are you kind of thinking in this way? Stillhead also says, remember to smash that like button. Yeah, give it a thumbs up if you enjoy the video as we go along. My name is Sunwarper. With me today is Curtis. Before I hear how he's doing, though, I want to say hello to all of our amazing patrons and friends in the chat. We've got Bendu, if it'll show up. There it is. Bendu, how are you? Hydro Fighter, it has been a minute. He told me on Discord he was coming. I was very stoked. Stillhead is also here. Hydro Fighter is still updating his DAW list setup. Says it's going to be growing a bit today, waiting for the TR6S to get delivered. Oh, very cool. That's very exciting. He, in a recent Star Stream, our patron podcast, was talking how he just decided to go all DAW-less, which completely shocked me as someone who just uses Ableton like crazy. But yeah, now it's slowly growing. It seems like the bug may have bit him about the DAW-less. So yeah, Curtis, what's up with you, my friend?
It's cool. Last day of term, so I'm out for summer. So I have kind of, what's the phrase? Just kind of limped across the finishing line. So I'm here. I'm actually drinking some caffeinated tea for once in my life to stay awake throughout the show.
Oh man, this
Hi
could be
everybody.
bad. This could be dangerous.
We've got a sleep deprived dad and we've got a workaholic. It's going to be an interesting combination. But no, I'm good. I'm good. Feel good. So, like I say, feeling good. It's changed. It's time to get back into the studio, start writing proper. Weeks off where I can just do stuff. So I'm feeling quite happy about that in that regard, which is quite nice. Plus, I actually got to see you on Monday for our meet. We haven't met for about 3 weeks, so that was nice, and that perked me up for the rest of the days.
There you go.
How you did?
Dude, I'm all right, man. I got a little sleep, so I'm still sleep deprived, but I got a little sleep. Feeling a little better after all that crazy sickness and stuff. The dog is still, I don't know, a little off, but he seems to be on the mend, so hopefully that's all good. It's been crazy, but musically, been able to find some time to do the iPad connected with the SP, and I'm loving the looper. Like that's all I've been doing lately is just looping stuff, and I really like the idea that you're just completely capturing a moment, right? There's no quantize, there's none of that. I mean, with the SP, you only get one undo, anyways. I'd love to get, like we've talked about before, something like the RC505 where you can have a couple channels of loops. But like I did a live stream last week, and at the end of it, I was like, F it, let's throw these sounds into Paul Stretch and see what happens. And then I sampled Paul Stretch into the SP. And then later I made this like drone looper and then added guitar on top of it. And I was like, this is just, I don't know why, but it's just really appealing to me right now. Like no DAW, no worries about like grid and sequencing. It's just like, just capture what's going on and just kind of vibe in that moment.
It's awesome. Is it coming from a space of, like you say, you're not on the grid, you're not worried too much, and also you can't sit and micromanage your music.
Yeah, I mean, I still have like Koala, GarageBand on the iPad that I can do gridded stuff and things like that. But honestly, it's just like it just feels more freeing and more fun, just kind of just taking whatever's there and just throwing it into the looper and then letting it kind of build and very like early Illuvium. I don't know if you're familiar with Illuvium, the ambient artist, but he used to do a lot of like looping stuff, and it would just be sounds stacking on top of each other, just constantly stacking and building these massive sounds. And I really like that. I mean, it's just like a skewing structure, like no worries about structure, just build. And yeah, I mean, there's definitely an art form to it, but it's just interesting. And then I like the idea with the looper is that you can capture all these kind of weird in between things. Like if you're just accidentally move the guitar, like move your hand on the guitar at one point, but it's on the overdub, you capture that in perpetuity, that like whoomp, or something, and then it becomes a character of the track. And like you can just randomly add little overdubs of like swells on the guitar, and it just captures it, and then it's just there in the back. I don't know, it's just kind of fun. Like you don't overthink these things, like, oh, I need this transitionary sound, and you're just like making stuff, and it's just building and building and becoming this giant thing.
Yeah, I get that. It's very much you take the snippets and the captures of time, put them into place, and they're there forever. Um, I was doing a data log of a friend of mine's 505. He'd filled up all his songs, and so we were putting them back into Ableton just so that he had the loops and we could keep them and then play around with them.
Yeah.
And they are like, you can get. He does a lot of stuff out in the open and stuff like that. So you get these like little snippets of conversation, and you get these little things and little bangs from, say, the pub or wherever, or the park that you're in. And it's just the quintessential ambient kind of artifacting in that sense. And it's magical, absolutely magical. It's like a little universe within each one.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. See, you're so eloquent, Mr. English major or English teacher. That's why you're here, right? To just kind of embellish. But one thing that I think I might consider doing is recording the session into a DAW. And like I did for the video I was making, because it's part of a video from the live stream that I did, like a subsequent edit. But because then if you know the BPM, you can then chop those segments, those different parts where there's parts added and things like that, and rebuild it in the DAW should you want to, if you want to stretch things out or remove parts or something. There's a lot there. But again, that kind of takes away or diminishes the idea, right? Because it's really just capturing this moment as it is, mistakes and all, like that human element. I really like that. And Stillhead in the chat says, actually, that is how I started as a kid. Before I had a computer, I found old cassette players and stacked them on top of each other. Yes, that is how old I am. That's cool, though. Yeah, I mean, I see people do that still, even now, where they're stacking sounds on top. And I also want to say hello to Smiling Errors, who just popped in. How are you? But chat, let us know, what have you been up to this week? Has any gear caught your eye? I know Hydro Fighter got the, what is a TR6S, so I know some gear caught his eye. But if anybody else is eyeing gear, eyeing plugins, anything like that, let us know. I also would love to hear from you about what we're going to talk about in the round robin, just so there's time. So if you do want to share something, or patrons, if you want to hop on the call in the round robin, the link is in the Discord. But what do you think about Spotify playlisting right now? Are you still going on there? Are you still pitching to playlists on daily playlists, Amid Hub, and all that? And I'm not talking just editorial. I mean playlists in general, because there's lots of issues right now, as we'll show some Reddit posts and things like that, of people getting accused by Spotify or their distributor of bot plays. And then there's also this whole thing of these bot playlists adding people unbeknownst to them, and songs are getting removed. And then there's add to the layer that there's the whole, if you don't get 1,000 streams per year, you don't get any of the money, any of the royalties. So I'm curious, if you've previously done a lot with Spotify playlists and things like that, are you still looking into it, or is the landscape changing? Are you looking at something different?
Yeah, we are in this kind of change, and everything is changing in that regard.
It really does feel like that, right? I mean, you have like
Mhm.
Twitter's or X has been changing. Threads is kind of on the rise, but very weird at the moment. Like social media wise, Instagram, people keep talking about the reach getting lower, and then you add Spotify to the mix.
It's wonderful. It's great. I mean, like it's the it is like if you think about the successes or the success stories of things like YouTube and Instagram and Facebook, that kind of thing, that barrier is kind of closed at that point. But this becomes more democratizing and allows anyone else to have a chance that regard. It's also more authentic, I feel, which is quite nice.
Yeah, and then the other thing too, I mean, just to be optimistic, I suppose, is something could come and rise up in this, in the wake of all of this, right? Like something new, because that's what Spotify was, what, 10, 15, I don't know, however many years ago. But we always saw these changes, the CD, and then Napster, and then that went away, and then piracy or whatever, and then we needed an alternative for that. So Spotify and streaming was kind of that monetized alternative, and then yeah, that is doing its thing now and all that. So something might come up in the wake of all of this.
Yeah, hopefully. Maybe the proletariat, but we might leave that for a second. We'll get to what we're looking at, because
Yeah.
talking about change, right? So, we have this kind of classic in the box, out the box debate, and ne'er to the ever shall meet. However, what you've brought to the table this week, kind of by accident, but also it's kind of cool in that way, is this kind of hybrid way, a changed way, a more metamorphosized way of production in this regard, and it's kind of cool. So, do you want to tell us about it?
Yeah, so this is the McDSP Tape APB plugin. And when I first saw it, I was like, this is awesome. And we'll share the video in a second, but it's an emulation of magnetic tape recordings. And, a lot of us electronic musicians, but any musician always wants to add saturation, tape sounds, dirt, things like that to these very clean digital sounds. And we've covered a lot of different ones. I mean, we always talk about the Arturia Mello-Fi in terms of like tape emulation and things like that. But this one has a very different kind of approach to it. And that's also the catch to it. So let's show what it looks and sounds like and stuff, and then we'll talk all of that.
Okay. So I'll just play this video. So I've just gone straight to audio examples here.
Yeah,
And we can get into a bit more detail.
Our first example is a drum kit. Let's hear it with and without tape.
Yeah, let's skip
In
to
this
another sound
example,
real quick
we're
and see what we got.
Pumping 70.
Oh yeah, hear that compressor? Yeah, listen to that kick.
Very pop through.
So yeah, it's adding a lot of pump and things like that. I'm gonna drop it. See if there's another one with like a synth or a guitar or something. I'm just curious to hear that. But while you look for that, I'm gonna read a little bit about it. So features analog emulation, and analog is the interesting part because it's a plugin, right? But analog emulation of magnetic tape recording systems, 4-stage analog process, user control of magnetic tape type, playback head characteristics, and tape compression. VU style metering of input, output, overall gain reduction, sample accurate automation of analog processing. So the analog part, the reason that is, and what I didn't see at first, was this plugin is a part of their APB hardware. And I don't know if I think I put, if you could grab that link, the Sweetwater link, to show what the hardware looks like. There's multiple plugins and stuff that work with this hardware. So it's tape emulation, but the processing in a plugin, but the processing occurs in this hardware, it sounds like. So I find that fascinating. And Smiling Earth says, is it a transient shaper? It's an emulation of a tape, of magnetic tape. So it's doing all kinds of things, and they've got compression on there. It sounds like grit and stuff like that. If you listen to that example, I mean, the kick just becomes, the decay of the kick got a little bigger. There's a lot of saturation going on. So here's the hardware, and this is the cheapest one that I could find for $4,000. So it's not cheap, and I also like iLock required, which that's like the the kicker of it, right? But yeah, I like the idea of this, and that's, I mean, I really like the sound of it and things like that, but I wanted to bring it to the table for that. But also, we're seeing kind of potential here, right? Like, this is what we kind of talked about this at, I want to say, a year ago, at like the start of a lot of the AI things. There was a amp emulation plugin that did AI that supposedly helped to mirror like the changes in variability of a tape or a tube amp. And so this is kind of like what I would like to see in just the plugin world. I would like to see more of that. So this has this giant catch of a $4,000 hardware that you need. And it still says, yeah, that is a catch. It is a bit of a catch. And I didn't see that at first when I saw it. I was like, oh, tape emulation. We're always looking at tape emulators and things like that. It looks and sounds really cool. And there's a lot of really cool plugins that come with it or bundled with it or whatever have you. But yeah, I don't know. I really like the kind of promise of this, and in the hopes that we'll see all plugin or all digital versions of this would be very nice. But I'm curious, chat, what's your take on this? Have any of you heard of this plugin and hardware before. Curtis, what about you? What do you think about this?
I think it's pretty cool. I think I like where it's going. I mean, it's something that I would consider if I had 4K, and which obviously is another thing. I think if I had 4K to spend on a synth, or I had 4K to spend on this, I think I would spend it on this. I think
There's a
the
lot more
idea,
to it, right?
yeah, and I think the idea of having your studio in a is, again, you can put it in a bag, you can carry it anywhere. You got your laptop and you got your studio, and you can take it anywhere you go with you. Now, obviously, you can have your stock plugins and things like that. But what I suppose, and I could be wrong, I'm trying to look at the specs here. What I suppose it does is it's similar to like an HDMI converter, i.e., it takes that away from your card, takes it away from your processor, so you don't have to worry so much about CPU usage.
That's a good point. Good point.
And you've got all this analog gear sitting there in a box. It's like having your, you see those, talking about Instagram and stuff like that, where you've got producers in there with like lines and everything going all the way back with all their racks and stuff like
Yeah.
that. You had that in a little box. That's kind of dope in that regard. And yeah, it's a bit of a barrier to entry in the fact that it's $4,000. But again, that's why again I come back to the like CPU usage and stuff like that. And
Well, not only that, but buying all of that separate stuff as hardware is probably going to amount to a lot more than one $4,000 purchase. I mean, it's a lot of money, but if you are looking into buying a lot of hardware or something and you could get away with this, I like this idea, this sort of hybrid combination of you can have it, like you could have a laptop and that, and instead of having a rack, like you're saying, you could have all those different hardware pieces. And the plugin, from what I'm understanding, and now I didn't take this deep dive into the hardware, but it sounds like the plugins are powered and utilize this hardware to make it kind of like this analog format or whatever. And if anyone knows the more accurate versions and stuff like that, by all means, put it in the chat or the comments if you're listening back. But that's kind of the general idea from what I'm gathering. And I really like that idea that you can do all this in your DAW, and you can then load different versions and patches and presets, which with hardware, you'd have to kind of like, remember what you're doing. Like, oh yeah, I'll take a picture because this is what I was doing for this one or whatever. So I like that. And I think, I don't know if I shared this yet, but kind of like to what you were saying, Stillhead said, I'm having trouble sharing these chats today, but it seems, there we go. If I was starting all over with no gear or plugins, I could imagine getting something like McDSP, definitely. But then he adds, however, I have plenty of plugins already and a lot that I don't even use. But I would definitely switch out my 500 series rack and analog compressors with the McDSP. Yeah. And Bendu says, the tape emulation that I use is from Universal Audio and is tied to my audio interface. Yeah, I've heard of that too. Yeah. Sleeping State says, most emulators still emulate the same few chips. Looking forward to the emulators getting down to the voltage level of emulators. Then it will blow my mind. Bendu, wait, I have two more actually. One more from Stillhead. I'm pretty sure I wouldn't miss my analog outboard gear if I had something like McDSP in my setup. And Bendu says, I'm not familiar with McDSP, but it seems much like UAD, Universal Audio. Yeah. Anything you want to add, Curtis?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like we're all very familiar in that regard. I'm not very familiar with Universal Audio's hardware side of things. I know that they do have those racks of plugins that they do, and we've debated their use on and off over time. I think it's pretty cool, and it would be worth looking. I'm in a bit of a workflow where I have a set of plugins and I have a set of kind of things that I like to do when it comes to the basics of sound design, saturation, compression, that kind of thing, before you get into the fun stuff.
You don't think that's the fun stuff?
Well, I like modulation. I love modulation.
Yeah, I love the coloring of the sound, like getting that grit.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I love that. And I think that we have the beginnings of another round robin here, and some of the fun parts of like dynamics and compression and that kind of thing. That's cool. At the moment, I'm just really into modulation. Everything has an LFO, and everything is moving. It's alive. It's a living organism that's circling through space. But I digress. My point is that having an authentic kind of like analog model without going into debate about whether or not that is true analog and whether that's worth it and whether or not it's any better because it's on an onboarding device. It's just at a very basic level. It's just a kind of nice little cool box that you can play around with in that regard. And yes, there's a high barrier to entry, but you know, it for me it seems to pave new ways. I like that.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just looking at what other sounds they offer in this. So it really does seem like outboard like mixing and mastering stuff. So the tape emulation, Bob, which is bass optimized bias, kinetic drive, compressor and limiter, equalizer, multi-band compressor. That would be cool. A mixer, dynamic range compressor, tube limiter, compressor, another compressor. They're all doing like different things. A limiter, surround limiter, another compressor, C18 compressor. So yeah, I was wondering if maybe because you mentioned like you're all about the modulation right now, if they had like a what is it, ring shift or something, like something cool, that would have been cool. But I mean, they're adding things, but I gotta say, like if you're looking for hardware for mixing and mastering and stuff, this could be an interesting kind of combo where depending on its sound. I mean, we're not talking total sound quality and if it's true analog and all that, like you were saying, but this is a very interesting all-in-one kind of box that you can then have in your DAW. And as Curtis mentioned, reduce some of that CPU load and things like that. It sounds like, so yeah, I don't know. It's pretty cool.
It is quite fun. And I mean, it's very different to when we discussed the topic earlier in the week about just like introducing this new plugin. It's now morphed into this kind of new world. But yeah, chat, let us know what you think. We know it seems to be people kind of have toyed with the idea or at least kind of explored it to a degree. If you are watching back or you're watching or listening on the podcast, let us know. Be really curious do you like to blend the analog or the analog modeled and the digital already? Would this speak to you in that regard? Where would this sit, if at all, in your workflow or in your DAW?
Yeah, definitely. Anything you want to add before we move on to the next segment?
No, let's. I've had all I want to say about that one. Let's move on to the community corner.
All right. Lastly, we got something from Stillhead, one of our patrons. UAD is still an emulation. McDSP used their hardware to integrate real analog processing to emulate the plugins. Yeah, that's the understanding of how I get, or what I get from reading about McDSP's APB. I think they have normal plugins as well, because I saw some other ones and stuff. But this APB is this like analog processing. I think it's analog processing box. I don't know. Maybe I'm just trying to make words from the APB, but there is a meaning to it, and I think that's it. Anyways, we'll move over to the community corner. So this is a heads up to all of our Discord users and the participants in the secret sample challenge that we're doing. It's underway, and all participants, if you check your Discord DMs, you'll find your sample, and it's named like Secret Sample U. That's not your sample. It's not the sample you gave us. It's your sample to flip. Post your submissions to the Secret Sample channel on our Discord before July 24th, and our listening party will be on the 24th of July, not June, but July, at 10 a.m. Pacific. That's an hour before we do ADSN. So when we went live today, go an hour back. We'll do it on Discord on the Voice Hangout channel. That's our public channel. All are welcome to do it. We're going to play the original sample, then the remix, and then we'll reveal who made the original sample. And just for clarity, when it comes to the sample flip, there aren't any rules. So you can go granular, you can chop it, you can do whatever you want. You don't have to keep the original sound. It doesn't need to be audible as that original sample. You could even take a 2-second or 1 second or granular sample of the sample and go crazy with it. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. We got a lot of comments. People are really digging the samples that they got. So everybody made some crazy samples. We've got some really cool ones. Well, I'm not going to say anything. Never mind. I'm not going to say anything. I was going to say something. Well, I mean, everybody knows who's a participant, but let me just say this. We did get Eon Lake to give a sample, and he's slow as molasses with getting things to us. So I was stoked we were able to get him to give us a sample. So that was good. We got, I think it's 8 or 9 participants. So it's going to be really interesting. Yeah, I'm stoked. What did you think of the sample you got? Did you dig it? You have any ideas yet?
Yeah, it's cool. It's kind of fun. It gives an instant route, right? If that makes sense. So it gives an instant kind of yeah, you can go for this. So immediately I've gone, right, let's not do that. Let's do something completely different. If
Yeah,
that makes sense. So like
super massive, man.
well, it's I always what I enjoy about these. We've done a few of these now, and what I appreciate about these challenges in the Discord is the fact that I'm trying to do something I've never done before, and we've
Yeah.
done that with the genre gambit formally, right? But I've even been kind of doing different things with a different mindset each time. Like the first time it was write it in a day or write it in a half day or whatever it was at the time, and so I've been setting myself challenges within challenges, and the challenge for this one, as well as the challenge of it being a sample flip, is how different can I take it away from what it kind of screams at? If it's saying, for example, I'm a lo-fi sample, how can I make it, drum and bass, or how can I make it psytrance or something like that?
Yeah.
That's the thing for this time. But I'm also not going to take it too seriously. And I think we say this every week, but I do want to hammer it home. It doesn't have to be a polished track. It doesn't have to be a finished track necessarily. It doesn't even have to be a long track. It can be a vignette or something like that. It's about exploring, and it's about trying something different, and just being part of a community. There are no awards. There's no grading system. It's not a test or anything. Don't take it too seriously. It's meant to be fun.
Yeah, the goal here is community, right? We just want to have fun, get ourselves thinking in different ways, working in different ways, exactly like what Curtis was describing, and just come together. And we're all just gonna at the listening party listen and give feedback. It's not negative, nobody is like rude or anything like that. We all like what everybody makes, and it's just kind of an opportunity for us to give feedback to each other and learn in a very interesting way where we can hear stuff and talk together and be like, oh, well, what if you did this? Or like, oh, I really like that idea. I'm going to use that in my stuff now. Or hear what someone did with your sample to give you this idea of like, oh, I could have done that. Like, I never would have thought of that. Because that's what I find with sample flips, like any sample flips that I do. It's like, it gets me working in ways I would never think to. And then I try to incorporate that into my normal workflow. And that's always been the goal of these community things. Yeah, so I'm very excited for what everybody puts together. It's going to be really interesting.
It's going to be very interesting indeed. So thank you for everyone who has submitted a sample and has bought into the idea of the community challenge for this month. July 24th, as we say, just an hour before ADSN. It's going to be a banger, so to speak.
Yeah, and we are a viewer-supported channel, so we don't do ads, we don't do sponsors. So if you want to help us to do more of these sample challenges, demos of gear, and just keep the show running in general, keep the lights on, so to speak, consider heading over to Patreon. The link is in the description, or making a one-time pledge to PayPal, which is also in the description. We're just $80 away from our StreamYard, what we need for the StreamYard goal, so that we can do things like this, and that we can do things like this, and that we can, I don't know if Curtis put any of the what's it called, but we can even put our little Audionautic logo up. We can put breaking news. Oh, he hit the wrong secret. We can do breaking news. So all that kind of stuff, and do these live streams week in and week out. That's because of all of you for helping us on Patreon and stuff like that. So yeah, we're $80 away from that. So if you want to do a one-time donation or just join the Patreon, patrons get exclusive Discord channels, a monthly hangout where we talk all kinds of stuff. Like we were talking about Hydro Fighter going DAW-less, which was just crazy to me. I'm still not over that he went DAW-less, but it's awesome. There's no other, I mean, DAW-less is great, but he just always was so Ableton. I'm shocked, but I love it. I love it. That's great to do these new things. You also get sample packs every couple of months, and there's a whole ton more. You can check patreon.com/audionautic. The link is in the description to see everything that's on offer there. Patrons also get to come on the show for the round robin. Some had mentioned they might come on today, but it was a little, they weren't sure. So we'll see. But we love having like Lars, Hydro Fighter, when he's able to come on. Everybody that can make it on. It's always awesome to hear from everybody.
It is. It's very much the manifestation of the community in which lives traditionally in the digital realm. So that's always nice in that regard. So,
Stillhead has to bounce from the chat. Says he's got company. No worries. Always
Have
happy to
fun.
see you, and I'll read what you wrote if I can find it when we're talking the streaming. I saw you put it up there for your opinions on the streaming and all that. So yeah,
Very much so. Um, in the name of physical manifestation, should we move across to our second
yeah.
segment?
I just want to read. I meant to read this before I went to the Patreon, but Sleeping State says, if mine sounds even slightly close to what I was given, then I need punishing, which is antithetical to what Curtis was saying, that we don't take it seriously. But seriously, well, not seriously, don't take it seriously. It is what it is. Just do whatever you want with the samples. Just have fun. We're just here together. We grow. We're just here to learn and just see what we can do with sounds and things like that. Just make crazy bleeps and bloops. That's the goal.
Make crazy beeps and bloops.
Bleeps.
That's the goal.
Bleeps.
Bleeps.
Yeah.
Bleeps. Make crazy bleeps and boops. That is the goal. I'm writing that down. That's cool.
Could put it on a hat.
Put it on a hat. We'll put it on a hat. I keep talking about making these trophy t-shirts. Just don't have the time, but I am collecting them, so we'll keep them for now. So yeah, that's what's going down. That's what's going on in the community for now. Let's have a look at Landscape FM, shall we?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. So
You got it.
this,
Oh,
if
here,
you
I'll,
wanna-
I'll cue it up there
we
for
go.
you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. This caught my eye. This is what they're calling the Ferrous. This is from Landscape.fm. This is what they're calling a string resonator. It's really cool. Designer Eric Pitcher of Landscape has introduced this. It's a handheld device that creates new sounds from steel stringed instruments. It uses 6 strong magnets on a spinning disc, basically, and then that is what strums, and uses magnetism uses magnetism
Magnetation. There's a
exactly.
t-shirt for you.
To strum the strings to create, as they say, ghostly sounds. These dials that you can see here can be adjusted, which then changes the harmonic content which comes through. Slower speeds resonate lower strings, while the faster speed resonate higher strings as a bass line, that kind of thing. And with this central dial that you see here, you can change the voltage input, which again further changes the strumming effectiveness of the harmonic content itself. Yeah, it's really cool. It's recommended for not just guitars, but you can any stringed instrument, any instrument with a steel string can be
That
used.
just looks
As you can
awesome.
see, it does. You just kind of put it on, and it resonates the strings for you. You can use that.
Are
as
there
a
any
string
audio
background.
examples?
Yeah, down here. So I'm just going to come down to the bottom
Really
here.
quick, while you do that, I'm going to share a couple of chats. Smiling Ear says Purdy, whatever it is. That does look very beautiful for sure. And Bendy says magnetation sounds like a good band name, right? I'll tell you what. I wasn't going to say it yet, but maybe that's the album you and I need to make when we're together in July. We'll make an album. We'll call it Magnetation.
That would be a fun thing. More on that in a bit. They do say electric guitar, acoustic guitar, electric bass, piano, mandolin, harp, pedal steel, kalimba.
Wait. Hold that thought. There we go. Yes.
Very nice. That's what we need. Exactly. Yeah, so there's a lot they can use. Basically, if it's got a string and it vibrates, you can put it. So yeah, I think I can share my screen. So this is chord change overtones. I'll put that one there for now. I'll go magnetic bending. You get that one come through.
Yeah, I'm just getting lost in it. I'm really liking the sound of it, especially that first demo.
Right. All right, I'll go. Okay, so one, as a lot of people here make ambient, and for the fact that Stillhead has just left, moving between fretboard and pickups, chord drone to magnetic drone.
Oop.
I'll do one more.
That's awesome. Is there a cost for this thing? Is it out or is it a Kickstarter?
No, it's out. It's let me double check how much it is. I've closed the docket for some reason. Give me a sec.
Oh,
Let me know
I
your
got the
thoughts
docket here.
while
Hold
I find it.
on. I just see 4,000, but that's the other thing. I don't see the price in the docket.
All right. Well, let me double check and find it. You tell me what you think about it. How's that?
Okay. Yeah, I'll tell you what I think. It sounds awesome. That's the worst thing to cue me up on because I don't have much more to say beyond it sounds awesome. I'd like to see an actual video of what it's doing because I mean it seems very Ebo-esque in terms of like its placement, but I'd like to see what it's doing with like the as Curtis put it, the magnetation. Like what is it doing? I just want to see the visual of it because we're hearing it. We saw pictures. We saw them putting it on the strings. And I'd really just to really know what it can do, its true output. I'd really like to see them use it on the kalimba.
Yeah,
Like you can't just say that and then
sure.
not show it.
Yeah, exactly. It's $180 off on the offset, and this, yeah, as well as it being a pretty cool device, it's kind of quirky, it's kind of different, that kind of thing. It did kind of we were discussing it briefly in the green room before we came online. Again, another reason why we were late. But I mean, let's face it, we're late every week. But
No, we always start on time at 11:08. That's our designated because for you in your reality, your subjective reality, it's 8:08. And I mean, what better time than 8:08? But for me, it's 11:08. For others, it's probably like 2:08 or something. So
it's close enough. It's close enough.
Yeah.
But I suppose the point I'm making, or what I wanted to come back to, or you kind of breached on it for a second. It's very similar to an Ebo, right? It's very similar to an Ebo. Now, as far as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, an Ebo, the bass line only vibrates or only manipulates one string at a time.
It's just one string. Let me zoom in on you real quick. I think I have one in here. I can grab it. Hold on.
There we go. All right. But I believe there might be an Ebo that does multiple. I could be wrong there. But something clicks my brain, maybe watching Chords of Orion in one of his videos or something like that. But my point is, this seems like an analog version of an Ebo, and you can manipulate more than one string at a time, which was how, as you can see, we're getting those lush kind of harmonic drones that are coming through and stuff like that. So, yeah, really interesting to see that kind of come through, and it's all analog, a bit like when we looked at that Phase 8 from Korg just after Super. It's again, it's that blending of the analog and the digital in that realm, and I think that's amazing.
Yeah, chat, I'm curious to hear what you think, and I had no idea what you said, Curtis, but while you were talking, I did grab my Ebo, which I don't think, no, there's no battery in there, but yeah, so the way it works, let me see if you can get the lighting right. So the string goes in this little slot right here, and you just put it on that, and then there's two different types of bowing, whatever you want to call it. And one is more of like a feedback sound. I haven't used this in years, but one is more of like a feedbacky sound, and then the other is more of like a droning, like resonation. But you see it when you put it on it, you see the strings start to vibrate. It's really cool, just from a visual angle. So that's what I was saying. I really want to see this one in action. Yeah, if this can do multiple strings and things like that, which it kind of sounded like from the examples. Now, granted, I'm hearing, and probably the chat is hearing through a lot of internet compression. It's mono and all that stuff through the streaming and all that. So we'll put a link in the description if you want to check out the actual sound qualities. Sleeping State says, you ever Ebo a bass string? I believe I did with the bass back there before in one of the songs. There was an ambient song I did, but I think I did one of the higher strings. Hydro Fighter says, I dig it, hoping I can persuade Shady into getting one. I mean, you play bass, don't you, Hydro Fighter? I mean, you know, just saying, it's still DAWless. It's still DAWless. But yeah, I'd love to get that. I think this is one of the things that we've covered lately that's most intrigued me.
Yeah, I know what you mean in that
because
regard.
I'm just thinking too, in this whole looping state I'm in right now. Just imagine that thing, like looping a drone underneath and then just going for it. Oh man!
Like I can imagine like having the guitar just on on a table, right? Just here, for example, and then you've got your SP404, and then you've got your iPad or whatever it is, and you just
Paul Stretch
put it
Man.
on. Yeah, okay, you just resonate the crap out of it, and that, I mean, that could just be a drone. You don't need necessarily to loop that, and then you build your loops on top of that.
Yeah,
Like, it'd be amazing. Be
dude.
amazing to
Yeah,
see.
I know. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just like just seeing it. That's again. I really want to see some video of it or something, or landscape. If you want to send us something to check out, we're more than happy to cover it. But I would love to see some video of this thing in action to just see what it's doing, how it's doing it, and all that type of stuff. You seem very excited by the notion of something, Curtis.
Yeah, no, I've just got some more details. So it's 180
Oh,
bucks.
perfect.
If you're in the United States, it's $6 shipping. If you're outside the United States, it's $35 worldwide.
Bit of
It's
a
a
bummer.
pre-order. It's in,
Oh, you
yeah.
cut out there. Say it one more time. Sorry.
It's the ETA is this summer, which, I mean, technically we're in June. We're about to hit the summer
We're getting
solstice,
there.
so
Yeah.
I'd say that we're pretty much there.
By the way, how are we already like more than halfway or whatever through June?
Because time dilation is funny. And it's like
Crazy, man.
reality is circling the plug hole, and we're very much near the end of it. So that's my answer.
Well, that's dour, dude.
Depends how you feel about it. Like, there's that idea, isn't it?
You
Like,
just want to be
what
done. You're
no,
checked
that's
out.
not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that, the plug oil, the water goes down the plug oil, and it leaves the bath, for example, and that's, white and sparkly, but also can be stinky sometimes. But then it goes into another world, so you never know. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying
All right,
changes
all
come.
right. Fair enough. Fair enough. Sleeping State says for drones sounds good. Overcompress the reverb to feed back into it. Ooh.
That's nice. It's a nice little way
Yeah.
forward.
I'm telling you, this thing, I'm stoked on this. This thing sounds and looks awesome. Like, I just want to see it actually in action to really see what it's
Mhm.
doing and things like that. But the potential of it and the demos of it, the sound demos are all very promising.
Yeah, very much so. Um, so I'd like to see. I'd like, maybe. I mean, it was only released, or the idea of it. The news came earlier in the week, and I think it was on Sunday or Monday, because we started doing the docket late this week. So it's, give it time. Patience, is the way forward.
It's a virtue, right?
Exactly. And virtue is a grace. Grace is a
There
little
we
girl who wouldn't wash her face. I don't know where that comes from, but I've always had it in the back of my brain. Anyway, I digress. What's going on Saturday, Sunwarper?
Yeah, so real quick, a lot of the label, Audionautic label, the Discord community, and then friends of Audionautic have all, or were all kind enough to give remixes of my Imagine Landscapes album. So we're doing, I don't know if you can share that link I put, but we're doing music for Reimagine Landscapes, the album, which is out this Friday. It's up for pre-order now on Bandcamp, but we're gonna do a free listening party on Bandcamp this Saturday at 11 a.m. My time Pacific. So for all of you, it's the same time we do ADSN. We're also going to have a reissue of the sold out Imagine Landscape CDs, just the CD, not the art book and stuff like that. And the first 5 to buy it when it releases on Friday will get the only 5 copies of Reimagine Landscapes as a CD. So if you want the CDs of both, there's no extra cost for these. There's only 5 of the Reimagine Landscape CDs. So the first 5 to buy the Imagine Landscapes, the original CD, will get those. And Curtis was kind enough to make that artwork a couple days ago or a week ago, and then I forgot to respond to him because I was sick, and I was like, oh, we need to change this, and this, and he did it all right before he's going on his trip. So it looks great. It's going to be awesome. So yeah, if you have any questions for the remixers, or you just want to hang out and listen to some awesome music coming out with us, I'll put the link in the chat and then also in the description if you want to RSVP for the listening party. But it's going to be a lot of fun. The last listening party we did for the original version, it was a huge turnout, and it was a lot of fun. We were just talking, sharing the stories, and then next week on ADSN, we'll be covering how all of these remixers and how we approach making remixes. So we're going to talk. Curtis, I think, share his project file. Eon Lake is going to show a bit of how he turned a 2-minute guitar track into a 9-minute techno banger. So he'll be doing that. I'll talk about turning a lo-fi track into a ambient guitar track. And then all of the remixers, or most of them, are going to send us like a voice, video, or text message about how they approach it. But a lot of people, and even some of the remixers that we had, were talking about how they struggle when it comes to approaching a remix. Like, you have the stems, like, what do you do with them? And so we want to talk how we all do it, and we want to hear from all of you as well, of course. Like, how do you approach a remix? Have you ever tried it before? Also, really quickly, here is the Reimagine Landscape CD. So there's only going to be 5 of them, and the only way to get it is if you get the first 5 to buy the music for Imagine Landscape CD. So you get 2 CDs for the price of 1 if you're the first 5. These remixes, I'm in awe of what everybody put together. Like, it's crazy. But Smiling Errors asks, what is a listening party? Do we all listen to the album at the same time? Are we in a conference room? No. So it's just on Bandcamp. So everybody just goes to that Bandcamp page, which I just linked right here. And then the songs, it's kind of just like a live stream basically, but it's just the Bandcamp songs just start playing, and there's a text chat like Smiling Ears, what you're in right now, and we all just talk in there. So there's no video or anything. It's just listening, hanging out, and talking in the text chat. It's a lot of fun. So if you're available Saturday, 11 a.m., which is 7 p.m. UTC, Curtis, is that right?
UTC, yes, UTC, yes.
And then 8 p.m. for Curtis, I believe. But yeah, so 11 a.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. UTC. If you need conversions or anything, Google's your friend, but you can also message me. I'll do the conversion if you need it. But it's going to be awesome, and some of the remixers will be there, so we can talk kind of like their approach there and all that. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm blown away by what everybody did. I mean, Smiling Errors did something really crazy with his remix. It was insane. So yeah. I love, like, there's one segment in that that the drums are just like so awesome. I love it. So yeah, that's that. So the links there, it'll be in the description. It'll be in the show notes if you're watching after. Yeah, it'll just be a fun time. Listen to some good music from a lot of amazing artists.
It will. It'll be a lot of fun. Sadly, I'm gutted to miss it this time. I will be in the woods. But it's Sunday. Did you say Saturday? Or Sunday? Saturday. So I will be in the woods, which will mean I'd be ashamed to miss it. But all those remixes are top notch. It's amazing, absolutely amazing what everyone's done in that regard.
Yeah.
So
it's really inspiring. I mean, just listening to, like we were talking about with the secret sample challenge, like hearing what people did with these, I was like, I never would have thought of doing that.
I never would have thinked about that.
Never would have thunked it.
Never would have thunked it. It is, but again, that's why we always come back down to community at the end of the day, isn't it? It's like this notion that it's always about learning from other people, and we get what we do traditionally is so lonesome, right? Obviously that it's not. There are exceptions to the rule, but what we do, we sit here on our own or in silence, and we have our headphones on, and we do this stuff, and it's all kind of magical and whimsical, and everyone's got their own method, and that's totally fine. But the best learning and the best kind of inspiration comes from seeing what other people are doing, which is awesome. So yeah, the album is chock full of high quality talent. Yeah, so it's amazing, and it's amazing to experience and watch everyone go through it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think what you're bringing up about community is an interesting way to move over to the round robin, because while we're talking about Spotify and things like that, we also want to talk some alternatives and kind of like what we think a new approach is to dealing with it. So let's first lay out, I guess, what's going on with Spotify, why we're bringing this up. We've been covering a lot of goings on or going ons at Spotify and just the general thing around it. But to kind of set it up, I remember a couple years ago, like pre-pandemic and all that, the big thing was playlists, right? Like if you're a growing artist, if you're trying to become a artist, like grow and do it as a business or whatever have you, or a job, like getting on these playlists is huge. And again, I'm not talking just editorial, but trying to get on playlists and growing and getting monthly listeners and all that type of stuff. Going to Submit Hub, going to what's a daily playlists, SoundPlate, making connections with Spotify playlisters and all that, and getting on these playlists and getting these inactive plays where people are just listening to you because you're on a playlist. That was like the big thing. And then it seemed to really grow around the pandemic time. And then this year, Spotify completely changed a lot with royalty payouts. Now a song needs to get 1,000 streams before they pay you, and it has to be in a year. There's also been a huge rise of these bot playlists where you'll get placed on a playlist and it gets you 1,000 streams in a day, and you don't even know you get placed on it usually, but you get these 1,000 streams and they're all from like one place in Finland, like a bot farm. And then Spotify is cracking down on these bot playlists, but instead of cracking down on the playlists, if they suspect a song is botted, they just remove the song, and they're charging penalties and fees to the distributor and to you, even if you had no knowledge that it happened. You can't opt out of being placed on a playlist, right? So if something puts you on there, you're just there. And I have a couple links if we want to just give some sort of what do you want to call it, like proof or evidence to this stuff. So if you don't mind clicking, I've got a few links there, Curtis. So just really quickly, the first one, when you've got it queued up, this is just from Spotify discussing what they consider artificial streaming and third-party services, that basically bot farms and things like that. But the big thing is the consequences for using these services. If you'd stay down a bit, go down, stop there. Yeah. When we identify confirmed cases of artificial streaming or stream manipulation, we take actions that may include withholding of associated royalties, the correction of public streaming numbers, and measures to ensure that artists or songs' popularity is accurately reflected in our charts. In some cases, we can remove confirmed artificial streams from your data. In other cases, you may still see artificial streaming spikes, even though associated royalties may be withheld. They have the right to remove manipulated content. And then this third paragraph, we share monthly reports with labels and distributors about confirmed artificial streaming on our platform. Based on these reports, your distributor may take actions like issuing warnings, or in flagrant or repeated cases, removing your content from streaming services or suspending your account. And if you go to the second link I sent, it's a Reddit post. If you Google bot playlists on Spotify or song getting removed, you'll see tons of posts on Reddit and other places where people are saying their song got added to a bot playlist or their song got removed because Spotify suspected. But if you look at that second, I guess this paragraph, when the stats updated, I noticed a song had been added to this playlist and had gotten over 1,000 streams in 24 hours, but the streams to listener ratio was way off at 30-1. And I think they mention, maybe if you go down to Andrew Southworth, a YouTuber's comment, we've covered this even a year ago or something too. He did an interesting deep dive about a year ago, but he said it's been going on for a year. Basically, they add artists to the playlist and then they pump up the thing. And then, to my knowledge, they put a link to their website. And the goal, I guess, which is just bizarre, is to get people to go to the website and then say, hey, can you keep me on your playlist? And they're like, yeah, for $200 or whatever. It's very bizarre. But yeah, if you Google it, I mean, this is happening a lot. And as we just showed in that previous link, Spotify, if suspects it or anything like that, even if you didn't ask them to put you on, they can remove your track, remove stats, take away things like, there's a lot of punitive measures that all happen to the artist and not to these bot playlists. They don't shut the bot playlist down. That's the frustrating part. So all of that, in addition to the fact that there's this new 1,000 stream per year requirement before they pay you any money. With that in mind, I just want to throw it to all of us. And I have thoughts on this, but I want to hear from Curtis first. And I'd love to hear from the chat. I think Thomas still had put it up a bit earlier, so I'll find that. And I think Sleeping State's putting some stuff. But what do you think? I mean, were you ever pursuing Spotify playlists? And then secondly, if you were, are you still with all of this stuff? Have you had issues with bot playlists? And if you're moving away from Spotify or just staying away from Spotify, you've abstained from it this whole time or something, what are you looking at for building community, for building your artist name, for getting your music out there? So Curtis, you can tackle it however you see fit. Let's start with your thoughts on this.
Well, yeah, okay. So let's go back to, like you say, pre-pandemic, the whole thing was playlist, like you say. We even had Jason from Submit Hub on the show about a year ago now, I think, and we were discussing playlists. And then it was kind of the hot thing to do. We were looking at tips and tricks, how to get better at that kind of thing. And yeah, and a part of this, what we bring to the show is always stuff that we're interested in. And there have been times where, yes, we have gone and done that. I know that I have in that regard. And it's always been that cycle of put some credits, submit to a playlist, the ones you then share on your story, hope to get some traction, yada yada yada, rinse, repeat, right? but it doesn't seem so simple anymore. As we move to the mainstream and move to the middle, it's a very finite thing that can be playlisted, and it can't really delineate much from what the median is in that playlist. If it's lo-fi hip hop, if you put a boom bap beat in there, they might be like, nah, it's too boom bappy or whatever, that kind of thing. Or there's too many chords in an ambient track or that kind of thing.
Are these personal reviews you've gotten? Because I remember I've heard things like that before too. Like the song's amazing, but it's not so amazing or something. It's like,
yeah.
Okay, thanks. Like,
they say it's an amazing track. It just doesn't fit the list. I had it a lot with Intervoidal. Intervoidal 1 was everyone liked the EP, but it doesn't sit in a genre. It's kind of trippy or trip hop. It's kind of electronica. Does have some aspects of ambience in there as well. It doesn't really fit a mold. So this is what I come back to, is what it's made me do is kind of not reevaluate, but just pay more attention to where I put my money, if that makes sense. Like it used to be a case of, I remember when Ebbs, Flows and Solos came out. I remember when we did Trans-Pacific and Periapsis, for example, the whole thing was, okay, let's get some money together, let's put it into a playlist, let's make it work, But these days I'm looking at what I'm spitting out, and I'm looking at my creative output, and I'm going, is this fundamentally going to make it onto this market, i.e. Spotify? Is it going to make it onto this, or is it going to be received well? Perhaps not. Perhaps it's better if I go over to Bandcamp, where my actual true fans actually want to see what I make because they like what I make. That's what I've been doing more recently. And then that goes the other way as well. If you make a track, I did Thinking About You, for example, which is it's very lo-fi. I submit to a load of dark lo-fi playlists, and it did really well on those playlists. But only one person bought it on Bandcamp, for example, and that's okay. I kind of knew that would be the case. But I suppose what I'm saying is the piece of art that I've just made, is it going to be content, or is it going to be an artistic expression, or is it going to be a bit of both? Because there's different packs or places for it, and that's really liberating. I think that's really liberating in that regard. It's very different. But nowadays, instead of just kind of spitting it out everywhere and getting overwhelmed with emails and with Bandcamp codes and Spotify submissions and all that stuff, you can go, no, you know what, this is a Spotify thing, right? So I'm going to put that on Spotify. I'm going to focus on Spotify. I'm not going to bother so much elsewhere, and that can shape my marketing campaign for that release. Oh, this one over here, this is trippy, this is a lot of fun, but that's not going to make it on a playlist because it's completely out there. I'll focus on Bandcamp, and I'll push Bandcamp and make sure people know that my Bandcamp exists, which then doubles down to this notion of, focusing more intently on your platforms and where they go, which is, for me, quite a nice way of moving.
Oh, that's interesting. I'm going to just grab my mic because I feel like sitting back a little bit. I don't know. I'm always like hunched forward or whatever, and I'm not feeling it right now. Anyways, I think you bring up some really good points, but it just made me remember some really funny reviews I got on Submit Hub. One was like, I absolutely love the track. It's a perfect fit, but the hi-hats are a little too panned.
What bullshit is that?
It's like, hi-hats are panned typically. Right? Like, okay. I mean, but it's someone's opinion. I mean, this is completely different from what we're talking about. It's not a big deal because it's just one person's opinion, and they're a playlister or something. And this whole thing we're talking about is no hate on Submit Hub or anything like that. I mean, that's a whole different discussion in and of itself. I just really want to talk about like the landscape we're in, because I feel like when we started Audionautic, a lot of the tips were like, get on playlists, grow on playlists, and stuff like that. And now with all these things we discussed, the changing landscape of Spotify and these punitive measures where they're punishing artists rather than the problem, which is the bot playlists and stuff, like, is it still worth it? And Curtis, I think you touched on exactly what I wanted to cover as well, in the sense that you kind of have to pick and choose your battles, right? Like Spotify, especially, supposedly they're paying more royalties out now if you hit this 1,000 stream number. Of course, then they also backhandedly did the premium subscriptions get audiobooks, and so they can pay less royalties, but they're getting sued for that. So I don't even know whether we're going to see higher royalty payouts, or if it's going to be equal or less because they did this whole audiobook thing. But besides that, it still can be a lucrative option getting on playlists if you can get tracks on bigger playlists or editorial. But I think my key thing here is that we need to almost vet the playlists or scout these playlists that you're intending to pitch to minimize risk of botted plays. And Submit Hub actually has a lot of information on a playlist when you look at it. But I think the days of like going to like just getting on any playlist you can might kind of be going away. That's kind of my thing. And personally, like the whole 1,000 stream bit has really made me reevaluate my Spotify strategy. Like always before, Spotify was the first thing I'd link besides Bandcamp, and now it's either like a generalized what do they call it, aggregate link. Like I'll use my website and I make a landing page that has all the links to the ones you need to go and stuff like that. So Spotify's there because I don't think listeners that use Spotify should be punished, but I'm also not pushing it because I'm giving Spotify money that is owed to me technically, you know, like realistically. So my main thing now is YouTube, website, and Bandcamp, because YouTube, if you can get on the partner program or even just have content ID, you can get ad revenue pretty well there. And then there's the whole algorithm that you can learn and work with. And the algorithm can do some crazy things if you figure out. I mean, it's always changing. You never really figure it out. But if you can get lucky with the algorithm on a track or something, you can make a decent bit of money. My song Moon Meld got, I didn't even do anything. It was the YouTube video that DistroKid puts out. But that song just went crazy, I think, because of the artwork, because it's a very synthwave track, and the artwork was like a retro wave city with a car, and it just went insane. And it got a bunch of money that probably never would have got on Spotify, but it also did well on some of those bigger playlists because I scouted them. And to your point, Curtis, where you're checking out, does this song kind of fit the playlist? You're not making the song for the playlist, but once you've got it, you can kind of be like, well, if this song fits a playlist, then you go for that. So I think that's the goal there, is that you kind of just need to vet where you want to go, and then don't waste a lot of money on songs unless you think the song is a pretty good fit. And then if you're using Spotify, like I don't push it anymore, but I don't want to punish those that use it and that listen to my music on there. So I just try to have it there, but funnel it. I've also seen artists do like a EP version of an album on Spotify. Like, hey, the singles are on Spotify, but if you really want to hear the whole album, or only one single's on Spotify and like a B-side, and if you want to hear the other singles and stuff, YouTube, Bandcamp, stuff like that. So there's lots of options in that way. Oh yeah, and then the last thing I want to say, like just as a precautionary measure or something, if you do find that you get added to a bot playlist, I would recommend taking pictures of it, taking pictures of the stats, the wonky giant arrow you'll see. I might see if I can find a what it looks like, but on my artist, but because I've had issues with this before, and every time I have an issue with it, and what I recommend you all do is email Spotify for Artist support or contact them on the Contact Us page on Spotify for Artists, and just show the screenshots. Say, hey, I did not put this up, but I want to show you, like, this is going on. What can we do? They usually are just like, oh, it's because of this or this. Like, don't worry about it. But whatever they say, take screenshots of that conversation. So if there's ever an issue later where your distributor or Spotify makes claims, be like, hey, you told me this. Like, this is your words. I came the day I saw these streams. I showed you. Here it is. Here's this. Just like have all the receipts basically, so that you can show it. Okay, I know we both talked for a long time there. Curtis, is there anything you want to add?
Not right now. Not right now. I mean, I'd be curious. I know that Thomas had a bit. You said that Thomas had a bit of an input before the show.
Yeah.
So let's go.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I also have one section we'll talk after when I read what Thomas said. Let me find his though, because we've had quite a bit of chat, so I gotta find it. Where is it?
Okay. While you're
carry on the conversation while I look.
While you're finding it, yeah. If you are listening back, if you are watching on Spotify, or if you are listening on Apple Music or something like that, let us know. It is an interesting one. We are, as we said earlier, we're in this changing landscape of kind of music marketing and where we put our music and what we use it for. I am personally of the opinion, I think that's a great thing. I think it's a lot more dynamic. I think it's a lot more anarchic in that regard. But we'd like to know what you think. Leave us a comment or head across to the Discord and we can discuss it there, because we're just two guys who just have a microphone, and there's a lot of us with microphones, but your opinion counts and we want to know it.
Well, we'll talk about that too in a second, but definitely we'd love to hear your takes. You can put it in the chat while we're still live, put it in the comments, head to the Discord. So Thomas Stillhead said, we definitely need more transparency in regards to the algorithms behind the DSPs and their playlists. Until then, it will continue to be the Wild West. So I agree. And I think what I really don't like is I think we as artists, I mean, this should not be that difficult of a thing. We should be able to opt out of a playlist we're added in. Because that's a lot of these bot playlists, you have no knowledge that you're added to it until a day or two later when it shows up in your stats. And then you'll see this giant spike of listens and possibly followers. And then it messes up your algorithm because it will show the location of a lot of your listeners as Helsinki, Finland, because that's where a lot of these bot farms are. And that's throwing you off for when you try to submit to editorial or anything like that. So it'd be really nice if we could opt out of these playlists. Like if you see you're on it, opt out. And then that's another layer of evidence you can have to fight if you're ever given a punishment or something for something you had no hand in. Because that's the problem, is that you're added to these things unbeknownst to you, and then you're punished for it rather than the playlist being punished, because they just keep popping back up. They have like 50,000 followers, 80,000. And if you ever get on a playlist like this where you get a huge spike in streams in a day, check out the playlist, make sure it's legit, because maybe you get on a legit one, but you'll notice like the way you can spot these playlists, there's no genre to it. Like it might be labeled as, like hottest indie hits or something, but when you listen through it, there'll be no rhyme or reason to the songs added. And then you'll see in the description, they'll put a link to their website and they're like, check us out and blah, blah, blah. And so those are all red flags you want to keep in mind. But yeah, so you're still, if I'm gathering this right, and it sounds like you're taking a similar approach to me, and I see Sleeping State, I see you've got a bunch there. We'll read it in a second. You're still putting music on Spotify, right? And then from there, if you feel like you've got a track after you've made it, you're not making tracks to please an algorithm, but after you've made a track, if you think it fits a genre very strongly, you're still submitting to playlists, right?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah. But it sounds like, similar to me, you're vetting these playlists in that you're looking for ones that are specific to your genre or the genre of the track in mind. And then also, they seem much more legit, at least from the stats and things like that you're reading.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, that's what Submit Hub are really good at. And kudos to Jason over there for making it work for the musician as opposed to making it work for the playlists in totality. It's very easy to put your parameters in, put your filters in for the playlist, and then just go through. And before, admittedly, there are more credits per submission now, but before you put your credits in, you can go onto the link and check it out and check what's in there and see if it's a vibe. It's really easy, and if you put it into the routine of your marketing campaign for your new release, then there's no reason why you shouldn't be doing it, if that makes sense. Like it's money at the end of the day. It's money, and it is a bit of a black hole of money. It's not the cheapest thing in the world to get a load of credits and submit. This is just talking about Submit Hub, obviously, and not that there's anything wrong with that, but just careful where you put that money, because you could put that money into ads, could put that money into a looper pedal, for example. So it's just about being conscious about where you're putting your money, and it's so easy to do. Like back before the pandemic, it was a bit more difficult, and it was a bit more anarchic in that sense. And it was, you had to go through, you had to follow different links, and then you had to be logged in on Spotify and stuff like that to make it work and all that stuff. And now you don't have to. So yeah, just have a little of a vet and have a little bit of a gander, because at the end of the day, it's only your money which is being wasted in that regard. It's totally okay if playlists want to stick to a vibe. If it wants to be all lo-fi and E flat minor, that's totally fine if that's what they want to do. It might be dull as hell, but that's that's the
yeah. Then if you've got a track in D minor, don't submit it, because it's just going to be a waste of money. I have one thing too. I want to add, I totally blanked on what I said because I wanted to go on that. There was one thing I wanted to add though. Oh yeah, make connections with the playlisters as well. Like find the playlisters out there that are doing it right, not doing these bots and things like that. And then you can always direct message them and things like that too. Now, typically, if they're on Submit Hub, that's a form of making money that they can use. So they may want to do it that way. But even not to submit your music, but just build a relationship with the playlisters that you do find trustworthy and reliable, just so that they know who you are. And when you do submit on Submit Hub or DM them, it's a it's a two-way communication, like it's a two-way street or whatever. I want to read what Sleeping State wrote, and then we've got some alternatives we want to discuss. But Curtis, is there anything you want to add before I go to Sleeping State?
No, go straight to Sleeping State.
All right, so Sleeping State says, and this is a couple, so we're going to run through them. So give me a minute to get through them. Somehow, A&R went from looking for the next exciting new song or act into not looking until a song gets media traction. They moved from the front of the house to the back, which has put value into manipulating the plays. Labels do this to pump their artists. Everyone else is hostage to the companies that farm their service in between. Sucks. On top of that, every media platform promotes the paid members. There is no organic way for new music to be heard and gain traction. Example, everywhere only has trending pages. Non-paying uploaders are not hitting those pages until they get lots of views. It's a catch-22. Rant over, and then when I had mentioned YouTube, it said, love YouTube. That one thing I was going to say in terms of you discussing, not this one, the inorganic, paid memberships. You're right, especially social media. YouTube does it a bit differently though, because the advertisements, if you advertise your YouTube channel, you're actually setting yourself up a bit for failure because you're skewing your reach, and it doesn't count any of those watch times towards building up if you're trying to get in the YouTube partner program. And YouTube, the algorithm and really kind of like the way titling and things like that work, it's its own ball game compared to social media and stuff like that, and compared to Spotify and growth. And the best part that I find about YouTube is that it's evergreen, as they put for all the social media gurus and stuff. Like, videos can last for a very long time or in perpetuity when they start catching on. They might have like a very big trend at one point, but if they catch on and if it's getting high click-through rate, long watch time and things like that, YouTube will keep pushing it because people keep clicking it and people keep watching. In other words, staying on their platform and getting the ad revenue. Because even on non-partner program YouTubers, they put ads and YouTube makes all the money for that. So it's totally different. And then Smiling Air says, half of all internet traffic is bots. Spotify is losing that battle and they know it. So let's talk. I think that's a good way to move really quickly to our last bit about this. And that's alternatives to Spotify. Now, again, neither Curtis nor I are recommending you stop promoting to Spotify fully. And when I say promoting, I mean pitching to playlists and things like that. What I think we're both kind of saying is really take a measured approach to it now, if you even want to do it, because there are alternatives. There's things you can do. So, Curtis, we've got some written down. Do you want to start with the first alternative there?
Yeah, sure. Building
it's what we've been talking about this whole time, basically, right?
Yeah, essentially building community. I think that is the best way to put your stuff out there. I think that is true organic growth, because that is, people are genuinely interested in what you have to do and genuinely interested in your art. And that's why we always push the idea of community and personal and collective growth as a group. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, things like Discord, which, while kind of still a social media, you can get to know people and build this tight-knit group, right? And you can get feedback. Exactly what we're doing with the secret sample and the Discord challenges. We're coming together and we're building community. And in that way, maybe it's other musicians or something, but they all have friends. They all have things. If one of those other musicians retweets your stuff or helps share a story or something like that, it's all growing. It's all for the sake of expanding your reach in organic ways, to the point Sleeping State was saying. So it's something like that. And then beyond that, this is something that I'm still looking into once things kind of calm down with the sleep deprivation new dad status, but live shows, building local community, building community of fans. Now, I always find these live shows are kind of a catch-22, because you need to get fans there, but to get fans, you're supposed to play shows. So I don't know. I don't have much experience with live shows. Maybe as you start playing, people who are there or whatever, they gravitate to you. I've done a few shows And it kind of worked in that way where new people, even if a small number, they were like, they came up to me after the show, they added me, messaged me on Instagram, like, oh, I was at your show yesterday. So I can see how long-term that would be viable were you able to do it. I think that's a big thing. And then you can have merch, you can have stuff like that, but it's very authentic in the sense that someone is seeing you perform, and it's this interaction. And I personally find, and Curtis, maybe you can attest to this too, but like YouTube live streams are another way of building community because people can interact with you live and you can respond to them and you can make changes to your song or do things in what they're saying and stuff like that. I don't think it's as potent or powerful as like an actual live show, but I think there's a lot there, especially if you're in an area without many venues or you don't know where to get started there. Like that is a very good way to do it as well.
Yeah, and I think just to branch off that, I think it's the honesty part of that as well.
I think you're right.
I mean, it's what Thomas was saying over the weekend. It's like with the introduction of AI, he was considering doing live streams where he shows workflow to prove that it is a human making the tracks, which is cool. It's a nice
Just
little
show your
angle.
hands first, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think that the authenticity is the key thing here. Like inherently, playlists are maybe this is a controversial statement, but they are inauthentic in that regard.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I
yeah,
always say inactive, right? Because someone's
no,
listening to you because you're just on the playlist. So
mm,
you get a stream, and if you're on a big playlist, it amounts to, let's say, the payout threshold or something. But did it amount to anything when you get off that playlist? That's always my issue. Like these bigger playlists, you get on for a month or two, you get a good number of streams, and then you're off. And did it change anything?
exactly, exactly. And so within that vein, doing the live streams or doing the live shows, creating and cultivating a community of people who genuinely enjoy what you do because you do it and not for any other reason. There's an authenticity there, which the world is moving towards authenticity, I feel. And we've been in the dark days of inauthenticity with social media and that, and I feel like we're starting to get pushback on that.
Yeah.
And it's okay to be you. It's okay just to kind of make the music that you do and not have to pander to anything else. So yeah, that's a great way of doing it.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I think authenticity is the key. I think that's a very good point. The honesty, I think the connections in that way, because you're having, even if it's like through a screen or whatever with the chat, but there's like authentic conversation happening in a live stream, right? Like look at with our live stream here. We're talking with everybody in the chat, all of our awesome patrons and friends and followers, subscribers, whatever. But like we're building community here. We're talking, we're interacting. And I find when I do live streams, like it's very interactive, like on my music live streams, and we can discuss things, and then you can answer Q&As, and so you're building this community around you and with you and all that. And I think it's a really good way to go, and that's why I think live shows, actual in-persons, is like the next step for me, for sure.
Yeah, most definitely. I think there's a way coming for that. So I mean, I'm looking forward to that. I mean, we're going to kind of test it a little bit, aren't we? Because I mean, in 2 weeks, is it 2 weeks or 3 weeks? 3 weeks, I think. 3 weeks, me and you will be meeting in Switzerland.
Yeah.
And for the first time in our existence, yeah, we'll be making music in person and creating content in person together. And so that's going to bring a different dynamic, and that's going to be authentic in a different way, and that's something worth exploring, and it's new and it's different and it's a new venture. So it's always about trying something different and trying something new in that regard.
Yeah, dude.
Um,
I mean, just how crazy is it that we've been doing this? I think August, so we're gonna push it a month early, but August is our 4-year anniversary of
it-
doing Audionautic. I mean, it's only 2 years or a year that we've done these live streams, but we were doing podcasts before that and making music together and all that. I mean, it's 4 years we've never met. Used to be in Vietnam. Now you're in Czech. I'm here in California. I mean, we've never even like seen each other in person in any way, shape, or form. And then now we're gonna be meeting. We're gonna be making music together. We're gonna try and figure out what kind of audionautic stuff we can do. Like if one of the days we're together is a Wednesday, so I don't know if we can actually do, depending on internet, if we can do some form of like our podcast, but it'll be actually together, the two of us in a room, in a real room, And then we're going to
It's
try
okay.
and film like some music making and stuff like that. So it'll be very interesting, but yeah, it's crazy.
It will be good. So that's what we think about this whole situation. Oh, by the way, if just to branch off that in a second, I'm taking votes on what kind of trousers Sunwarper wears. I've never seen them. So yeah.
You know, it's gonna be misleading because I typically just wear like exercise shorts unless I'm going
Yeah,
out or something. But since it's Europe, I'll probably have to wear short, like, you know, normal shorts. So we'll see.
it'll be fun.
It's gonna probably be too hot for like pants.
We'll see. But I'm going to stick a load of gear in a van and drive over to meet him.
I'd put a vote about what shoes you're gonna wear, but I think you're not gonna have shoes, so I don't think there's any vote needed there. You get it?
That's
Yeah,
a good point. I mean, I have to drive a van at the same time. So I mean,
That's true.
have tried driving babarefoot once, didn't end well.
Watch you have these
So,
like military boots on, just completely opposed to everything you are. Like,
just some like really heavy Doc Martens or something.
yeah.
Exactly. No, it's gonna be fun. We're gonna have a lot of fun. We're gonna jam out. I'm gonna stick some gear in a van, drive across to meet you. So we don't know what we're gonna do quite yet because we still need to work out the scheduling and stuff. But yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, but if you do have ideas or things, questions you want to ask us, because I think we are going to try and do a Q&A, let us know on the Discord, questions you want to ask, anything like that. We'll have more about that when we flesh out the ideas and stuff. But yeah, we are going to do for sure like a Q&A and music making and stuff. So yeah.
It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. So yeah, that's what's happening with us. That's where we think, and that's where we're at for this round robin.
Right. Hydro Fighter says, make sure you take some good band photos with some sweet posing. Yeah. What is it? Magnetation, or what's our band name?
Yeah, magnetation.
Yeah, we could do it in the Swiss Alps. We'll take some photos in the Swiss Alps.
It'd be fun. It'd be fun. So yeah, that's where we're at. That's how we think about this idea of Spotify playlisting and marketing oneself as an independent musician for this week. But let us know what you think, guys, in the chat, guys listening to the podcast, guys and girls watching the podcast, for example. What do you think? Let us know. Put it in the chat, put it in the comments. There is a little comment board on Spotify, I think, but come and hang out in the Discord and let us know what you think, because it's a big topic. It is the fundamentals of how you promote your music in the modern day. And there's tons of gurus in inverted commas that will try and sell you a quick course to get you to where you need to be. And that's okay. But if history has said anything, the best ideas are the ones that are bounced off from bits and bobs. That is not a direct quote. That is not verbatim, but it is.
Well, not only that, but just to help you recover there, I think the biggest thing too is finding what works for you.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yes,
part of
that's a
that
better way
is
of putting it,
talking to
yeah.
those who have had success with different means and stuff like that. Like those that have had a lot of success with Spotify editorials. We've got some of them in our Discord. Like, it's good to hear their takes on this. And then like I have a lot of experience with success on YouTube. So it's like that's where I come from, and that's what I found works for me. So it's finding what works for you. But the only way to do that is by talking to those that have found ways that work. And that's what our Discord, any community, Reddit, things like that, finding places where you can learn and finding from people that you can learn from.
Exactly. And on that note, Sunwarper,
who do you attribute that historical quote to, by the way? That very, is it like Abraham Lincoln, you know, never trust what you see on the internet?
No, it's just this notion of collaboration, sitting in rooms, discussing,
I'm just messing with you, man.
One another.
I love how you just quoted something. I have no idea.
I just kind of fell off a cliff.
It was kind of like partly in your brain, and then partly there was probably some quote you read or something, and you just kind of combined it into this.
You know what it was? I'm sitting here, I'm talking to you. I've got this here. I've got me and you here. I've got me and you on the other screen here with all the notes and stuff. And then I'm talking, and then there's just Tina, and she just starts scratching at the table. And I'm just like, okay, cool. So
no, you know what it is? Anyway. You know what it is? It's the caffeinated tea.
That's probably what it is.
That's probably what it is. Real talk, it's probably the caffeinated tea.
That's a lot of good points. I need to stop doing that, but it is a one-time thing. So tell me, Sunwarper, what will you be doing this week as we run in? You've got your listening party of the weekend, but what you're up to until we get to that point?
Listening party, I think, because my wife is off today, I think we're gonna try and go to the beach today, even though it's kind of
Nice.
cloudy, but that's not a bad thing. It's okay. Yeah, I'm so backlogged with stuff I need to do. I mean, I completely like messed up my release promo for this album because I was so sick. The family was so sick. So I'm trying to catch up, but I'm also like, I can't spend every waking moment in front of the computer making videos and this and that. So I was like, just go to the beach, whatever. But yeah, I made an edit from the live stream all about Paul Stretch
Nice.
from last week's live stream. So I think I'm going to start releasing videos on Saturday due to Switzerland soon, but I think I'm still going to do tomorrow, even though it's not fully done. So after the beach, I have to edit that. That's what I'll be doing. And then I'm going to start live streaming more. I think every other Saturday instead of a video, I'm going to do a live stream because to the point we were talking, live streams, they're a lot of fun. I get very nervous about them, and I like that. I keep talking about I'm trying to face all these anxieties and these nerves and things like that and do it and become comfortable with it. But also I like the idea that it's something that makes me nervous. It makes me feel like I'm doing something right. Like I'm doing something that's growth minded or whatever, you know, like trying to learn and grow and do things that are new. So yeah, I really like that. I mean, your live streams are a big inspiration because I like seeing just like what it's like the looping. What is created in that moment is what is, right? Like that's what it becomes, and it's captured. And when I make mistakes, I just laugh. Like I don't care, you know. Like if I messed up the drum loop, I just go, oh, whoops, and then redo it because that's all part of the process. It's all part of the journey. And then it honestly seems like the chat and stuff likes that, like not like seeing the mistakes, but likes that authenticity. Like that's what we're talking about. So, yeah. What about you? What are you doing?
I'm headed to the woods.
That's right. Yeah,
I'm
that's
headed
right.
to the woods. Yeah, it's start of the size season here in the Czech Republic. Big Psytrance festival over on the border with Slovakia, which is like 3 hours away.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll pack a bag, jump in the car, go over there. I will make sure I've got everything kind of set and ready and automated before I go. And then, yeah, I'll be back on Sunday. But the idea is to not have any shoes, quite specifically, not have any shoes.
There we go.
Stick my feet in the dirt, hug a couple of trees, dance out to some psytrance, and just kind of get into nature, get back one with the earth. I think I've spent a lot of time in concrete buildings and in the booth and the theatre inside. It's been beautiful sunny weather, and I spend 10 hours a day inside. No sunlight, no natural light or anything. So I'm just gonna get back, just absorb that vitamin D, and kind of come back. I want to this summer. I want to finish the follow up to Marooned. I have all the scratches. I've been sequencing everything, making it all work. So I'd like to be able to come back more in tune and in balance with nature and with the universe, and then get to writing. Essentially, no timeline, no kind of like expectations of I must finish it by this time. I'm not going to do that anymore. But yeah, it's going to be that.
We have the same approach because I have this idea of this album, and then I'm like, I don't know when I can even because I got to work on it a couple days and then never got to work on it again for like 3 weeks. So I have this idea, and I'm like, well, whenever I can work on it, I'm gonna work on it, and then I'll probably have releases coming out in between them, you know, like that guitar idea or like a looper album or something. But it's like that's the album that I want to just take my time on and do it where there's no pressure of algorithms, there's no pressure. It's just me creating music. And I don't want to have I don't want to have any of that. Like, well, I need this date and I need a synthwave track that fits this type of playlist. And I want to make a YouTube video about it. Like, no, all of that stuff is going to be separate. And then the art form, pure art form will be this album. And then whatever happens with it happens. But it's like, I have these other avenues for the like things that, and then that's just like that pure art, just like do whatever I want, no pressure of algorithms and things like that. So I hear you, man. I think that's a good approach, and I think it's like you have other releases coming out. I know you do with Intervoidal and things like that. So it's like if you're trying to do music as a sustained career, as a career, it's like we're trying to juggle this idea of like the art form and the career. And so I think we've kind of separately come to this conclusion of doing these like different kinds of things. And so it's interesting to hear. And I mean, that's what we're talking about. Like we can bounce off of each other and discuss these things and find out what's working for each of us. And now we've come to this similar endpoint.
It's almost like we've been working together for the last 4 years, and we've kind of understood that, it's
I don't know,
about
man.
all
I've
that
never
works
even
here.
seen you, so
You never know. I'm not really here. I could be AI. I could be AI.
it could be. Yeah, you could be. Yeah, show the hands. Proof of proof of humanity.
So we'll see. So yeah, that wraps up for what we got this week. We will be back next week for the Music for Reimagined Landscapes kind of deep dive. We'll be sharing some project files, talking about the remixing process. It will be fun. It will be community based. It's again just so many good remixes and so much beautiful creativity in that album.
I just like how you're talking beautiful creativity, and I see you playing like C sharp or D sharp, E flat. You're making music. Your brain's ready to make music, man. It's that caffeine, dude.
Exactly.
It's that caffeine. But yeah, we'll be back to talk that. If you have any questions about making remixes, like approaching remixes, or if you have any opinions or strategies you employ when you make a remix, hit us up in the Discord. We'll read it in the episode. I mean, we're going to use Reimagined Landscapes as a backdrop to discuss this, but we will just want to hear from a lot of, I mean, seriously, the music that everybody put out was insane. And I mean, like I said, I would never have made a song in these ways. Like I never thought of that. And I think there's a lot of room here to discuss both taking songs that exist and remixing, but also just the workflows of everyone and seeing what we can take from that and how we can incorporate it into our own workflows to become more streamlined, more artistic, more explorative, whatever you want to call it. There's all kinds of stuff. So that's what we'll be doing. So like I said, if you have comments, questions, put them in the Discord. With that, Curtis, anything else? Or we'll just go. We'll be back next week, 11 a.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. UTC. Anything?
Just to say thank you for everyone who's still here and who's listening, who's watching or listening to this podcast. As I've been saying at the end of each week, the time is finite. There are many places to spend your time, so we're so grateful that you come and spend time with us. This community is amazing. It's great. The ideas that we bounce across with each other, and the talk and the support. It's really cool. So thank you ever so much for watching, and we'll look forward to next week.
Yeah, it means the world. And Hydro Fighter says, good talk, fellas. Appreciate it, Hydro Fighter. Happy to see you here. Hope we can see you more often. We miss you, buddy. But yeah, massive thanks to all of our patrons who help support what we do and allow us to do this week in and week out, and even partly get to Switzerland and actually have some Audionautic in-person time. So yeah, if you aren't a patron and want to get additional features and all that, patreon.com. It's in the description, /Audionautic, I should say. But with that, we'll be back next week. Thank you for watching.